As a real estate professional, reviewing the status of title for a property is an essential step in every transaction, and caveats are one of the most important things to look for when doing so. A caveat is a formal notice registered on the title of the property indicating that someone other than the owner claims an interest in that property. Caveats can affect the use of the property and the ability to transfer ownership of the property to someone else. To register such an interest, the person or organization must complete the appropriate form and submit it to Terranet Manitoba. While there are over 50 recognized types of caveats that may be registered in Manitoba, some of the most common ones include mortgage or financing agreements, leases, builder's liens, beneficial ownership interests, encroachment agreements, easements or rights-of-way agreements, particularly for utilities, and building restrictions. Some caveats are standard, such as public utility easement caveats or building development zoning or use restriction caveats, for which the property complies and cannot be removed. These are pre-printed in the standard offer to purchase form as permitted encumbrances. If you are representing a seller, it is important that seller disclose all other non-permitted encumbrance caveats that they may be unable to remove so that they can be approved by the buyer to remain on the title after closing. If you are representing a buyer, it is critical that the buyer understand the full impact of any caveat that will remain on the buyer's title after closing. In some cases, caveats may be permitted in the pre-printed wording of the standard offer to purchase form, yet may prohibit the construction of buildings, decks, fences, or other structures on the property, or may impose an obligation on the property owner, such as the requirement to maintain a community fence around the property. There may be drainage easements that restrict landscaping changes, or the municipality may have the right to flood the property or restrict the use in ways not expected by a buyer. Party wall or development scheme agreements may limit changes made to the exterior of the property, and municipal development agreements may contain ongoing obligations that a buyer will become responsible for. These restrictions should be identified, discussed, and approved by the buyer before they become bound to an offer to purchase agreement. Given how drastically certain restrictions disclosed by a caveat can affect the use of a property, buyers must be made aware of them as soon as possible so they can seek expert advice and make informed decisions about their purchase. Remember, in the standard offer to purchase form, the seller only promises that the property and its current use complies with any such restrictions. Not every buyer may want to be bound by those restrictions, so it is important they be made aware of such restrictions in advance of entering into a binding agreement. Remember that building and use restrictions or obligations registered by caveats are generally in addition to zoning rules or municipal bylaws and can therefore be specific to the individual property. Registered caveats appear in the second section of the status of title under active instruments. Sometimes a description of the caveat is included on the title to include what type of caveat it is, but often there will only be a registration number. It is not enough to simply identify that a caveat exists. You must investigate further to discover the full effects on the property. Neglecting to do so can have serious consequences. Conduct an instrument search in Title Check or on land titles online using the registration number to obtain a copy of the document. If you want to know if the caveat affects any other titles or has been amended, you can order a status of instrument. For more information about searching for instruments, see the instructions provided by Terranet Manitoba linked in the description below. If you are unsure about the implications of a caveat after obtaining the status of instrument, consult a lawyer. In addition to influencing a buyer's decision to purchase a property, caveats may affect a buyer's ability to obtain financing. Lenders may be concerned about caveats remaining after closing because certain claims can take priority over the mortgage or reduce the property's value and marketability, which puts their security at risk. They may want assurance that the property's title is free of competing claims or legal disputes that could affect foreclosure or repayment. Any caveat affecting the title should be addressed in the offer to purchase to ensure the buyer's interests are protected. If the buyer needs more time to consult a legal expert regarding the full implications of a caveat that will remain after closing, the offer should be made conditional upon the buyer being satisfied with the nature and impact of the caveat. Be sure to include a reasonable timeline for this to be done. Alternatively, if the buyer has already decided that they are willing to purchase the property with a caveat remaining in place, an acknowledgement of the caveat may be written into the offer to ensure clarity about what is being agreed to. In situations where the buyer expects a caveat to be removed or discharged prior to closing, the offer should be made conditional on this action being taken by the seller, usually at the seller's expense. Remember, caveat literally means warning or notice. Never assume that a particular caveat will not matter to your client or that it will automatically be removed or discharged prior to the possession date. Always advise your buyer client to discuss the implications of a caveat with their real estate lawyer to ensure they fully understand its legal effects. And if they wish to proceed, include wording in the offer to purchase that accurately reflects what your client wants based on the legal advice they received. For more information about land titles in Manitoba or to review training materials related to Terranet Manitoba's online services, please see the links in the description below.